Mister todo el mundo, el taxi sensato del patio. Queremos darle una bienvenida a todas las mujeres que hacen vino por todo el mundo. Yo la conocí en un taxi, en camino al club. Yo la conocí en un taxi, en camino al club.
I began my trip to Ecuador by taking 3 planes and traveling for more than 30 hours due to technical and weather-related issues surrounding my flight. I arrived to a dark and quiet Quito City. When I make it to the hostel Guayunga, everyone is already asleep, and I try, and fail, to climb quietly into my bunk bed without waking anyone. When I finally lay down, I am stressed and exhausted from all the travel, and I wonder just what I've gotten myself into. But my journey has only just begun. In 5 weeks, I would return home more at peace than I had been in years. The next morning, I finally see the city. On the terrace of our hostel, I can see for miles and miles the city rolling on with the hills. The old buildings, bright colors, sunshine, and the cool, crisp air 9,000 feet above sea level are all extremely refreshing. 3 hours on a tour bus through the Andes Mountains. We look uneasily out the windows as we speed haphazardly along the cliff sides and spend a concerning amount of time driving on the wrong side of the road. Turns out traffic laws are more like suggestions in Ecuador. But I knew it wasn't our time to die. I was too excited and too ready for the coming week. When we finally arrived, I was in shock of just how beautiful the scenery was. The clouds gently caressing the mountains, in Bambura, our lovely father volcano, tall and powerful, and our sweet orange guest house. Right away, we settled in thanks to the kindness and patience of our hosts, Francisca and Alfonso Morales, Olympia, and Francisca Flores. Our first meal was of soup, rice, beans, and juice, the first of nearly 30 meals like this to come. Our first adventure was down an alley and a half-an-hour hike to the source of the water supply in Chilcapamba. I marveled at the lush vegetation, the bright flowers, and just how easily Francisca Morales hiked in her long skirt. Right away, I knew that we had a lot to learn, and to do it, I would really need to listen up. After that, the days fell into place, at first slow, and then seemingly all at once. We spent our weekdays helping with various community projects like harvesting and dekernelling corn, planting trees, and digging trenches and clearing paths to help with the larger community goal of getting fresh, running water to more people in the area. Every day we got up at 7 a.m., or if you were in room 3 with me, you got up slightly later, ate a breakfast of sweetbread and instant coffee, and then headed out to work in the cool morning air. At about 12, we would all come back to our guest house where 2 of us volunteers had prepared lunch with our lovely cook and friend, Francisca Flores. Lunch was always the biggest meal, consisting of vegetable soup, rice, beans, or potatoes, and either eggs or vegetables. After lunch, we would siesta until 2 and then head back out for more work until about 4 o'clock. After work, filthy and coated in sunscreen and the dry Andes mountain dirt, some of us would brave an ice-cold shower, walk 20 minutes to the closest town for sweets and internet, or sit on the front porch of our guest house taking in the breathtaking views until dinner. Every day the sun would set before dinner, around 6 o'clock, and we would try, and fail, to stay awake past 9 p.m. These days were also filled with lessons about Quichuan culture, hanging out, or being attacked by, the kids at the preschool across the road, practicing Spanish, or mainly speaking in English, and learning much more about organic agriculture and native plants thanks to community members and our Professor Noah. On the weekends, we traveled to Otavalo, one of the largest indigenous markets in the world, hiked the treacherous trails around Lago Quicocha, took an adventurous weekend at Mindo Cloud Forest, visited hot springs in the mountains, and explored the streets of Quito. One of the most important things that my time in Chilcapamba taught me was about balance. It was fascinating to see the way their community blended aspects of traditional Quichuan culture with the more modern Western world. You would see many women in the village wearing traditional clothing, but with a Hollister jacket over it. The kids and young adults often wore jeans or name-brand clothing, but wore their hair in a traditional braid. Most of the houses didn't have many modern appliances, but I saw several people with smartphones. One day, we went for a walk with the president of Chilcapamba, Antonio Morales, and he showed us a building where they have looms for teaching children how to weave. He showed us many different plants and told us of their medicinal purposes, and took us to the house of an elderly man who makes shoes out of plants. Throughout the walk, he talked about how some of the people had been losing their traditions and how one of his goals was to ensure that this didn't happen. I realized that they are simply trying to find a balance between modern comforts, nice houses, technology, more money, and preserving the environment and their cultural traditions. Many village members blend Quechuan culture and their Christian-based religions. They balance community growth and benefit with personal gain. They balance being happy with what they have now with setting goals for the future. This insight has been very important to me in the last few weeks, and I've been exploring ways that I can find more balance within my own life. Living in Chilcapamba not only gave me this idea, but also gave me the strength to feel like I can accomplish this and anything else that I want. I can choose what is important in my life, and I can find my own balance independent of what society tells me is right. Community and family, both very important things in Chilcapamba, can be important to me as well if I choose to make them a priority. I learned that I'm good enough the way I am, and I don't always need to worry about behaving the way others think I should. I know I've put too much pressure on myself to be and act a certain way instead of just being the way I am, and I found that people like me that way. I am the happiest when I am myself, and then I am best able to love others. In the future, I would like to make it a priority to do things that make me feel good and forget about the opinions of others. I know that should seem obvious, but I think it's harder said than done. I now plan to minor in Spanish, and I hope someday to teach abroad when I complete my undergraduate degree. So, what was it like staying in Chilcapamba for 3 weeks? It was nothing short of amazing. The people were welcoming and warm. They greeted you always with a buenos dias or a buenas tardes. They smiled while they worked. They did their best to provide for their families. They worked very hard. They were patient with us when we got in the way, which was often, and were very thankful when we were able to give them a helping hand. They taught us a lot when we listened. We learned how to speak some Quechuan. We cooked. We made bread. I learned what a yuca is. I learned that I can survive taking a cold shower, that communication is more than just words. I learned to dance to the music. I learned how to retrieve chapstick from a ravine. I learned how to barter in Spanish. I learned how to be happy without makeup. I learned that planting the Three Sisters is advised. I learned never to touch the scorpions, although I never learned why. I learned that standing at the foot of a gigantic volcano can really put things into perspective. I learned to give thanks to La Pachamama. I learned to only go to the preschool if you were ready to play with the kids. And I learned, just like I was told, sometimes you do have to travel thousands of miles to figure out just who you really are. Yupai Chani, Chilcapamba.